blimey. I mean, I've only been in office 2 years, and already this house is worth £20,000. Under your Labour Party, it's only worth £600, wasn't it? And you ask me why I vote Tory? Oh, blimey.
That's not the real price. That price is inflationary.
Of course, it's a real price in the paper, isn't it? £20,000 this house is worth.
Look, the point is, if you bought the house next door, it would cost you £20,000, wouldn't it? Because if this house is worth £20,000, then the house next door is worth £20,000, and the house next door to that, and the one next to that, and the one next to that.
There isn't one next to that.
Good evening. Thank you, good evening. Get up. Thank you very much. Thank you, good evening. And a very good evening to you. That, of course, was Alf Garnett setting the mood of June 1972. The time of your life for a very special guest this evening. It was the start for him of a quite glittering career in the world of pop. But for the rest of us, that ugly word inflation was with us like never before. Have a look at the inflation rate that shocked us back in 1972.
Cigarettes, 20 players. In 1962, 22.5p. In 1972, 31p. Letters. In 1962, 1.9p. In 1972, 3p. 1 pint of beer. In 1962, 6.5p. In 1972, 11.5p. 1 gallon of petrol. In 1962, 24.5p. In 1972, 35.5p.
Yes, groans from the audience here. As for food prices, the Mirror had a phrase for it.
Over the top. Shock issue. Inflation.
They took the Mirror shopping clock that they'd started in 1970 and compared what you got for £5 in June 1972 and then looked forward to how bad the situation would get unless inflation is controlled. How much you can buy for £5. 1976, it included £4 of meat. 1978 and 1980. And this is all you get for £5. It's about £2 of topside at the moment. And just remember, back in 1972, you would have got 32 other things with that. And that's just, well, 12 years ago, so times have changed. There was also something else going on in June 1972. A whole lot of ladies were really getting very beefed up about something.
Sky-high price of your Sunday joint. The great beef crisis.
And indeed, housewives took to the streets.
The protesters picketed shops in the main streets. They couldn't get the butchers to discuss prices, but they claimed some success in persuading housewives to stop buying beef in an attempt to force prices down. I asked the organiser, Mrs. Frida Evans, what they hoped to achieve.
I hope it'll snowball. I hope people in other towns will take up the cry. There's only the housewife that can bring price of meat down. The government's done nothing. It's pathetic.
Do you really think that this is the start of a housewife's revolt?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Posters?
We've had enough. We've had enough.
Good evening, ladies. Frida, I really think I ought to give you that by way of a gift. In view of the campaign that you...
I think I better give you that back. I'm a vegetarian now, actually. I work in a homeopathic clinic and I don't eat meat. Sorry.
Oh, lovely. But why did you think you could actually do something? It was very unusual, wasn't it, for housewives, actually?
Well, why did I? I just got angry one day. I was watching television and saw all these farmers trying to get their beef to market while there was this inflated high price, and which I think there was a artificially created shortage at the time. And I just got angry, so I just flipped my lid.
What was it like marching with this lady? Great fun. It was fun, was it?
Yes, great fun, and we were all determined at the time.
You treated it as a joke.
No, we all meant what we were doing. You know, we were all intent on helping other women to say, right, we've had enough.
One last word, Frida. Do you think that you will ever go out and protest again over any issue?
It's a hard question, isn't it? I'm married to an ex-police inspector, and he doesn't like me demonstrating.
Frida, ladies, thank you very much indeed. While while they were protesting and there was a certain amount of gloom and doom in the world, my special guest was rising to a quite glittering career. In June of 1972, he was all set to have his very first hit. In fact, he was featured on the Christmas edition of Top of the Pops of 1972. And as you'll see, very little changes on Top of the Pops. Most certainly the DJs looked then just as they look now.
You got me into, Stanley. Good evening, Sam. Welcome to Top of the Pops. Welcome indeed. Did you have a nice Christmas night?
I had a fantastic Christmas. Yeah. A lot of presents, a lot of trees, plenty of glitter. And...
Glitter? What a coincidence. Singing Rock and Roll Part 2. Here comes Gary Glitter.
Hello, of course you are back. Sit down.
Oh, yes, quite right, too.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes. Yes, thank you very much. What a nice, quiet arrival.
With the Christmas spirit of 1972.
Yes, you are outrageous.
I hope so. I hope so.
Right, we're talking about June 1972.
Yeah.
It's the period you've elected as a very significant moment for you. Why?
Because it was the start of my first big hit record. In fact, we've got my first gold record. That was the one that you presented to us.
Yes, indeed, on that
program.
So has that come off the dining room wall just for this evening?
Yes, it did. Actually, quite right. Straight out of the dining room.
Where did this glitter business come about?
I'd been Paul Raven. I was born Paul Gadd. I became Paul Raven, Paul Mundy. We tried Horace Hydrogen, Vicky Bonnet, Terry Tinsel, and I thought, well, you know, okay, I'll be Gary Glitter.
Here we've got the pop chart.
Yeah.
For in fact the end of June in 1972, so we can actually see that you're there at number 2,
yeah,
and Vincent Don McLean is at number 1.
Starry, starry night.
Some of the other people you're up against: Wings, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Little Willie
That's
from
right.
Sweet.
Oh yeah.
Did you find Little Willie was competition at that time?
No, I've never had a problem with Little Willie.
Donny Osmond, Puppy Love.
Donny Osmond has never been a problem.
As you mentioned, T-Rex and Metal Guru.
T-Rex was there. Slade are back in there, 72. That was good because they're around now, aren't they?
Yeah. It's worth looking at this because the chart was no easy touch in those days. It's not now, but a tremendous amount of competition. How surprised were you when you actually had that hit?
Oh, it's after 12 years of trying to get a hit record, when you suddenly get one, it's just, it's like winning. It's all the work that you've done. It's like winning the Olympics. You know, it's going for that gold medal. It's like having Wimbledon, the whole thing. It's incredible.
Now, how much do you remember about some of the other things that were going on, June 72?
There was me.
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
And
more you.
And more me.
Yes. Well, I'll jog your memory with a few other things in a while. But I think you're going to sing for us now the song that you were recording at this particular time.
Yeah,
is that right?
That came just after Rock and Roll 1 and 2. It's called I Didn't Know I Loved You Till I Saw You Rock and Roll.
recorded in June of 1972, there was also quite a musical upset.
Superstar Marie stops the show. Marie Morgan, aged 4, tried a little bribery and corruption on disc jockey Tony Brandon yesterday. He was comparing a live Radio 2 show from a Leicester hotel. Marie tiptoed up and coyly offered him a 2p piece and whispered, "Can I sing a song?" What she sang stopped the show and embarrassed the BBC.
Well, I'm glad we found you, Marie. Tremendous amount of money in those days, really, wasn't it, to bribe Tony Brandon?
Oh, no.
Was that your pocket money?
Broke me.
Well, I'll come back to you for a rendition of the song in a moment, but Rita, what were your feelings when your little girl got up and did this?
Embarrassed.
Did you know she was going to do it?
No. Well, during the show, before the show started, she said, "I'm going to sing a song." Sat her on his knee and she sang.
Was this in keeping with her character as a 4-year-old?
Oh, she is a character when you know her, yeah.
Why did it embarrass the BBC, do you think, Marie?
Well...
Come on, because it's rude, isn't it? I mean, it's a rude song. And you wouldn't have got away with it if you hadn't been 4.
True.
Right, give us a rendition, come on.
Georgie Bear, superstar, walks like a woman and he wears a bra.
I bet old Lloyd Webber's going, why didn't I think of words like that? Do you know any more dirty songs?
A few, but I know a good one about you.
Oh, fine, OK, well, we'll move on, Marie, thank you. Rita, thank you very much. Jesus Christ Superstar was making the news headlines in June of 1972. The record was already a hit, and the show was about to arrive in town.
Wanted. Jesus Christ. Director Jim Sharman is looking for Jesus Christ. He has auditioned 2,000 young actors already. Pop stars line up with established actors and complete unknowns for the auditions. The moment he walks through that door, I'll know him.
Chose me and they called this big conference and they led me down through this room and all the press were waiting for me and they wheeled me in and everyone went, "God, who is this guy?" Paul Nicholson, and they surrounded me and it freaked me totally because I hadn't been used to that, it being my second job. And suddenly all these people wanted to know who I was and then after they asked who I was, they wanted to know why. But so it was, you know, it was pretty frightening for me, I remember. Terrible.
Did it have any deep emotional significance for you?
No, not really. The only one time I really got affected was the first time I went up on, you know, they put me up on the cross. And Andrew had written a wonderful piece of music called John 49. And this music started and now I was on the cross and suddenly the tears just flowed from my eyes. I can't explain it. I wasn't sure what caused it. It was just... I felt so vulnerable, you know, there with that music and everything. And that was really the only time. After that, you know, if somebody sneezed in the front row, I used to say, "God bless you, my son," you know, that kind of thing, to relieve the tension. But I was moved once, yeah.
I feel we probably ought to explain your present garb and the fact that we're here in the Aldwych Theatre. What are you working on at the moment?
Well, I'm currently doing a revival of the 1947 production of I Was Gary Glitter's Dresser. And I've been lucky enough to get the part of Gary, only as a child. No, actually, I'm here doing the new Timorous musical. It's 12 years since I worked for him, thanks to him. And we're doing Blondale here at the Aldwych, and it's doing very well.
Is it good fun?
Oh, great fun, as you can see.
We mentioned earlier Paul Raven. That was your original name.
That was the name given to me by a major record company in 1959 because they thought Paul Gadd wasn't very glamorous, so they changed it to Paul Raven, which was a bit silly when, you know, I changed it.
Oh, we got a lovely picture of Paul Raven back in those days.
Good God, where'd you get that from?
I suspect there's worse to come. Here's a clip from the first disc that you recorded under that name.
lost in the night, thinking about I held you so tight.
No, keep it going, keep it going. If there was an Oscar for the worst record in the world, that would have been it.
I've just had a new programme idea, the embarrassment factor.
I tell you, my mascara's running now.
Mike Leander, you, for a period, managed him and produced his record. Where did this glitter business come about?
Well, the look was already there in the 70s. I mean, we
grew up with the
a couple
look,
of kids,
really.
we grew up with that look. We wear those clothes out of school as well as in school, as it were. And the records sort of came together at the same time. There was a rock and roll revival, as you pointed out earlier. I mean, the great legendary American rock stars were coming over. And it was in the air, and that led to us getting stuck into something as primitive as rock
there was a
and roll.
lot, I mean, you know, all the bands prior to that were all sort of bearded and, you know, no offence, Noel, you know, bearded and sort of, you know, hidden behind, well, it's the music.
Very
man,
intense,
you know,
yeah.
Very intense. And you know, my idol was always Elvis Presley as a kid and so on. So and I think he's most humorous. I mean, he was one of the most humorous rock and roll singers. And so we wanted to bring humour, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, it was always tongue-in-cheek. It was always fun for us.
But the point that interests me, because, Mike, you are astute enough to know exactly a hole in the market. How much was he a product of your imagination, or how much was it cooperation between the two?
I think it was 99% cooperation between the two of us doing what we wanted to do.
We were extremely lucky, Noel. The general public just took to us and, you know, thank God.
The only observation I make is that however you try to manipulate or manufacture an article, unless the artist basically has a God-given talent, which we all know Gary has, it's very short-term. And here we are 10 years later, so proves my point.
At which point did you spot that talent?
Well, I knew Gary when he had a rather humbler job of being the warm-up man on a program called Ready, Steady, Go. And his job was to get all the kids, rather like Top of the Pops these days, but get them in the mood for the main attraction coming on.
Well, I can even top the embarrassment factor of that record that you're listening to, because we've got a lovely clip of you doing that actual sort of warm-up and looking after people.
I'm ready, set, go.
Yeah, have a look and see who can spot Paul Raven. You were what?
She's not here, is she?
No. I think we missed a trick there.
You know, I mean, I tell you, how I did the warm-up, right, was a little bit devious, you know, as you can imagine. I was...
Yeah. She didn't seem to mind.
No, who would?
But I've got a little bit of a test, a 1972 test, because I've got a couple of items that were available at this time. A pocket calculator.
Give it to the management.
And a watch. I don't know whether that's your style. But the first digital watch came on sale, in fact, while you were having your big hit in June of '72. Have a guess what it retailed for?
I had the second one ever made. Not quite like this, but I had the second one ever made.
In excess of £100, I'm sure.
About 160, 150 quid?
You're quite right. It was £150. What about the calculator?
How can you get them for about £2?
Under £3. Yes,
Really?
under £3.
Well, presumably this must have been something in the region of 30, 40, maybe £50.
Bit more, £70.
It's a nice strap.
And once again, you
No,
can,
what,
these
three?
days you can get a calculator for £3. So at least
some
yes,
things
we
go
have
down.
proved that at least some things have actually
That's
come
not
down.
bad, is it?
Also, some lovely furniture, particularly if you like animals. This was the way furniture fashions were going.
Monsieur François Xavier Lalande, one of France's most forward-thinking furniture designers, is the creator of these chair frogs. The last word in bathroom design from Lalande, who made this hippo as a bathtub and hand basin. After a hot bath, a lie down on a bed of large, comfortable plastic fish. Not everyone's idea of bed, but then she seems to like the place.
Poor girl was lying down because she had a headache.
What about the bum? The bum was nice, wasn't it?
Stop it, stop it, stop it. I hate to think what your reaction to the next bit is going to be.
Ooh.
I've got a cinema advert from June of 1972. It was severely censored. We've now got the finished item for you. See if you can guess what the advert's all about.
When you care a lot and you want to show each other how you feel, it's natural to worry about what might happen if you're not careful. Don't keep your questions to yourselves. Talk to each other, then talk to somebody at one of the Brook Advisory Centres.
What do you think it was about?
Well, it was David Essex's voice.
Yes, I thought you'd get that bit.
Amazing.
Yes, fine.
Well,
okay.
I think it is,
yes,
really.
I think we're all
isn't it?
fairly clear
Yeah.
what it was about. What is interesting, that was 12 years ago, but we hear from the Brook Advisory Clinic that they've just had their very latest ad in 1984 censored. They were not allowed to use the expression up the spout. Back in 72, there was a lady who... Stop it. Who was quite audaciously throwing caution to the wind.
How Miss Owl and her pussycat went to sea in a beautiful light blue boat and got into terrible trouble. Folk singer Mary Owl and her black kitten Pebbles was stranded for an hour when her speedboat broke down. And there was only one way Mary could get help.
How was that?
By waving my knickers in the air.
Mary Owl is a bad enough name. You were out in a pea green boat, presumably.
Well, yes, I was doing some publicity stills because my publicity man thought it would be rather good, the owl and the pussycat, you see. Well, I've never been in a boat in my life before. So as I got out of sight of the guys on the shore, I also ran out of petrol. And I really was stranded at sea with me and this little kitten. And so I had nothing. I waved at a few people. They just waved back and thought, what a jolly lady. And I thought, well, I've got to wave something red. And, well, that was all I had.
Luckily, you had red underwear.
Yes, luckily.
Do you always dress with loud underwear?
Quite often, yes.
You still do it?
Yes!
I think it's a lesson for all of us. When you go out there.
Do it now, Mary. Do it now. Go on.
What's happened to your career since then?
I changed my name.
Oh, very wise.
Yes. I changed it to Mary Mason, and I had a hit record a few years later.
Give us a little piece of it.
Just call me Angel of the Morning.
See that?
Angel.
Thank you very much indeed. And there were some other undergarments on show in June of 1972, courtesy of Teddy Tinling, who does all the fashions, of course, for Wimbledon.
The British team, which includes Nell Truman, Virginia Wade, Winnie Shaw and Jill Cooper.
17-year-old Chris Evert arrived at Wimbledon for the first time and announced her attachment to 19-year-old Jimmy Connors. Ascot and Mrs. Schilling showed her latest hat, but do you remember the way you looked in the summer of 1972? The shoes!
Yes.
Those platforms were just starting. Big belts and bell-bottom trousers. Wider the better.
We had to.
And jeans had been cut around to make pedal pushers and hot pants the summer before. And now somebody cut them in half so you could mix and match the colours. Mind you, you didn't see many of these around. Well, we got a lovely picture
No, I
of you,
never wore
actually,
handbag,
looking very fashionable in 72. The shoes, of course. Oh, there he is.
Oh, dear. I got up to platform 5 or 6, I think, and that was it. Oh, look, there they are.
Count them.
Good God.
More platforms than Euston.
Yeah.
And in June 1972, there was a new star introducing a really glossy look.
Spangled. Been to every one of my concerts since, and I've known them since they were, well, about that high.
And these,
Fantastic.
well, obviously certain exceptions. These are items that you used to wear.
Well, when I went broke, I had to. The official receivers told me to sell off my gear. It's still in the family, of course, because was that mine?
This is one of the bands.
One of the glitter
That was one of
bands.
yours.
That's one of mine.
Was
I
that
recognise
yours?
that.
You'd never get into a jacket that slim.
Do you want to bet?
Anyway, what is it about this man, ladies and gentlemen, that makes you want to follow him?
The greatest.
The ultimate showman.
How much of your spare time is actually spent in being a Spangle?
The majority of it.
24 hours.
24 hours for you?
Yeah. Well, Martin runs a fan club at the moment, so he's
Is that your full-time job, running the fan club?
No, I work for British Telecom. I work in a pub and I run the fan club.
And you run it great, too.
If you came to fix my phone, I think I'd be surprised if you turned up looking like that. What do the people at Telecom think about you being a Spangle?
They've got no choice. It's all over our office.
Is it, really? Well, while we're talking about costumes, we've got Lawrence here who designed so many of your very modest and very quiet stage clothes.
This is a genius, Lawrence.
Take us for a little run down the rack. I mean, it's all fairly modest stuff. Is there anything there that you think would suit me?
Oh, yeah, what about... This is the one, Lawrence, isn't it, really? Yeah. Let's put that one on.
Lawrence, where do you get your ideas from?
Basically from Gary.
What does he say to you?
Well, I'll get a brief like,
I want a silver bull worker, and can you do
Black-
something...
Try that on for size.
Now that is
12,
very
give us a
heavy.
12, give us
So
a 12.
how do you manage to jump up and down and... Oh, it was a bloke. Thank you very much, sir. How do you manage to do a complete stage act wearing stuff as heavy as... I can't get it off now.
Well, I don't, because what I do
shoulders.
normally, I have an attachment so that it goes whoosh. So I go yeah, because I love Hollywood and all that razzmatazz, right? Yeah. But it is heavy. Here, take it off. I mean, you're only a poor young Noel, aren't you?
What do you reckon these outfits cost?
What do they cost? Don't tell me, I'll be shocked.
well, the last lot that we did for Gary to go to the States with took a long time to do, and they were about, I think it worked out about £2,000.
Lawrence, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for bringing them all along. And thank you for the staff. Well, while they were adding quite a bit of glitter to June of 1972, there were, in fact, some quite sombre notes around. The Duke of Windsor died and was brought home from France to be buried. There was a dreadful train crash at Eltham when 4 railwaymen on an outing were killed. Police were amazed by crowds of sightseers who flocked to see the wreckage. And when a British Airways Trident crashed into a field at Staines, the sightseers were christened as ghouls.
It was absolutely overrun with people, cars, yeah, and we were on the back in the fields. And there were loudspeakers telling them to go home, but they wouldn't go home. Carry cots, children in carry cots, prams, pushchairs, the lot. Really, you couldn't get through. They blocked our road off, the police. Couldn't get through at all.
And from America, there were reports of an attempted burglary.
The Great Bug Bungle. The experts were calling it a Max Sennett comedy, a Mickey Mouse operation, and a blot on the bugging profession. 5 men on a bungled spy caper were arrested at gunpoint in the Democratic Party national headquarters. The result, an embarrassed President Nixon. President Nixon's press secretary denounced the case as a third-rate burglary attempt. He added, obviously, we don't condone that kind of activity.
The President probably didn't know anything about it. He was far too worried with foreign matters to consider a building called Watergate. Henry Kissinger was flying and trying to get peace in Vietnam. And Panorama showed an advertisement at the time to make the point.
I'm Diane. I've got 747s to Miami. Fly me. I'm Terry. I've got great connections in Miami, all over the Sunshine States of America. Fly me.
I'm Marisa. I've got non-stop flights to Miami every day. Fly me.
I'm Henry. Fly me to Washington or Saigon or Paris.
How did I get out of here? And the President himself wanted to make his policy absolutely clear.
I believe that we will succeed in achieving the goal that I have heard from those young people sitting behind of us. peace with honor and not surrender for America.
These children had just gone through hell. It was impossible to determine the casualties accurately. What happened here was an accident of war.
The famous photograph from Vietnam that appeared in June 1972. But for some Vietnamese children, there was a new hope.
An orphan of the war finds peace at last. A proud dad cuddles his dream come true, and little baby Ruth says goodbye to the horror of war forever. She is the youngest ever Vietnamese child to be adopted by a British family.
Reverend Gough, tell us your side of the story, the family side of the story.
Well, it was at Leamington Spa that the Project Vietnam Orphans, it was called, started as a result of one of Julian Pettifer's panorama programs in which he reported on the Vietnamese orphans at that time. And I suppose it was a case of wanting to help one person. There were thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of children who were orphaned in Vietnam, but the aim of the organisation was to help just a few. And I think we decided we'd put our name down, and eventually Ruth was, I think, the 25th or 26th baby to come over, and at that time, as you said, the youngest.
Mrs. Gough, what was it like in those early days? Was it very difficult?
With Ruth?
Yes.
Well, for the first 2 or 3 days, she didn't cry. She didn't do any of the normal things that babies do, because she'd never been used to being handled. In the orphanage in Vietnam, there were 1,000 babies and a couple of nuns and a few nurses to look after them, and they sat in cots all day long. They never sat on the floor, so she wasn't used to being put on the floor. And when she was put in a pram, she used to hold onto the sides as though she were in a boat. She didn't take long to come to alter.
Yeah.
Just about a month, and she was a completely different child. All her teeth came through at once, more or less.
Well, obviously, Ruth, you don't remember that period.
No.
But do you feel English, or are you Vietnamese?
I feel English.
Yeah. And what are your feelings now when you read and you hear about Vietnam?
I don't really think about it much. I'm happy with my family.
Do you have any contact with Vietnam?
I went to a PVO reunion. I met some people from Vietnam there.
If everything was right, would you like to go back and see your homeland?
I think I wouldn't mind. I'd quite like to, yeah.
But for now, you're very happy to be English and a happy
Yeah.
English family. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us, all three of you. Thank you. Lovely lady, with a lovely little story there.
So brave.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Well, we're almost at the end of your story, your saga of June 72. Let's come right up to date. My word, you've been through it. I mean, you've done everything. Yeah, the lifestyle, we've got some pictures of the lifestyle that became nationally famous for Gary Glitter. Oh, the house.
The house, the cars.
The motors.
The pool. The bed. The bed. Yes, we had some good times in that.
It's almost, well, it is straight out the A to Z of being a pop star, isn't it? The pictures
Well,
like
it's
that.
out of, I always call it the Elvis Presley pop manual, you know, because we all sort of had to grow up and be that. Thank God it's all street credibility now, you know, down to earth. Even the platforms have come down.
But you came down with a real bump, didn't you? I mean, the glitter
Yeah.
got ripped off by the official receiver. You went bankrupt. Why?
I'm extravagant. Just like winning the football pools, really. So take that as a lesson, you would-be new pop stars. But I don't regret it, no. I mean, I'm having and had the most fantastic life. 1984. I mean, I've got a hit record again this week.
Yes,
You deserve the presentation. You've heard of an Oscar, you've heard of a Tony, well, this is a Gary.
Oh, dear.
Sorry about that.
It plays!
Yes!
Oh, I've seen it. This is actually the record.
That's the one that plays. That's
with the hole in a terrible place. Thank you very much. I'm touched in more ways than one. 84 then, so it's all going to be glitter again throughout the 80s.
Well, I think the general public seem to have an awful lot of taste at the moment. I think I'll come right through, Noel, now. And, I mean, you could lend us a couple of quid, couldn't you?
It's terribly tempting. That charm and that style, I should think a lot of people would like to lend you a lot of money. Well, you don't have to be awarded a Gary or indeed even go out and buy the record to find out what it sounds like, because we're playing out from this series of Time of Your Life with Gary Glitter's very latest record, Dance Me Up. Good night.
Body's on the floor. When it's hot, it gets me so excited. Bring me to the spot. I can't take it anymore. So lay me right in the middle of the action. I've been watching it long enough. So bring on the girls. 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 Don't touch the ground. I ain't gonna stop till you light my fire. You can dance me up, but you'll never dance me down. 'Cause I'm a man and my temperature is rising.